During a family trip, my parents said that I should sleep on the sofa so my brother could have the bed. I smiled. That's funny, I said, because I booked the presidential suite. Their faces fell when the hotel manager announced it. From a young age, I learned something very quickly. My younger brother, Ryan, could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. He was the perfect son, the favorite, the one who received everything on a silver platter, while I was just a shadow. Birthdays. His were full of expensive gifts, grand parties, and a cake so big it could feed the whole neighborhood. Mine. A supermarket cake and a flat, happy birthday, with no excitement. My parents moved heaven and earth, used all their connections, and poured fortunes into his education. I had to work part-time and take out loans to study. It was always Ryan first, me second. If he wanted something, he got it. If I wanted something, I settled for the leftovers. I spent years swallowing my pride, accepting my role as the less important child. But on this trip, everything was going to change. It was supposed to be a family trip to New York. My parents handled the planning, which of course meant Ryan's preferences came first. He chose the tours, the restaurants, everything. They barely consulted me. To be honest, I wouldn't even have gone if I hadn't overheard their conversation one night. "We don't have the money to book the suite," my mother said. "Then we'll put him on the sofa," my father replied, without even saying my name. "Ryan needs a decent bed." In that moment, something inside me broke. I was 27 years old, had a stable job, a good salary, and for the first time in my life, the power to change the story. So I did. On the day of the trip, we arrived at the hotel. It was a stunning 5-star hotel in the heart of Manhattan, the kind of place my parents would never have chosen if it weren't for Ryan's standards. When we reached the check-in desk, my mother casually handed her credit card to the receptionist. "We have a reservation under the name Taylor." The receptionist typed something and frowned. "I don't see any reservation under that name." My mother's smile disappeared. "That can't be. I booked the executive suite weeks ago." The receptionist shook her head. "I'm sorry, but there's no reservation under your name." I leaned forward, smiling. "That's because I made the reservation." My father turned toward me, surprised. "What?" I took out my phone and showed them the screen with the confirmation email. Yes, after hearing that they had decided I would sleep on the sofa, like some unwanted guest, I decided to handle things personally. Silence. Then the receptionist smiled. "Yes, we do have a reservation under your name, sir, and it is for the presidential suite." My mother was speechless. My father blinked several times, unable to react. "And Ryan?" Ryan looked like he was about to explode. "For the presidential suite," my mother stammered. "Yes," I said casually. "Turns out I earn a good salary. So I thought, if I'm going to travel, I want comfort." The receptionist continued. "The presidential suite includes a master bedroom, a second bedroom, a spacious living room, and a private terrace overlooking Central Park." My parents exchanged looks, then looked at me and Ryan, who seemed on the verge of a meltdown. "You must be joking," my father finally said. I crossed my arms. "Not at all. And since I booked the room, the master bedroom is mine. You'll have to make do with the rest." Ryan clenched his fists. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious," I replied, savoring every second. My mother tried to regain control of the situation. "Well, we can put an extra bed in the master bedroom, and Ryan can sleep there." "How nice," I said. "No. No one is going to share the master bedroom. You can have the second bedroom and use the sofa bed. But the king-size bed? That's mine." For the first time in my life, I realized something. I was in control. I set the rules. And they couldn't do anything about it. I stayed silent, letting the moment linger, enjoying the shock on their faces. Then I took the room key, smiled at the receptionist, and said, "Thank you. I'll head up now." I walked away without looking back, without asking if they needed help. And wow, it felt amazing. The presidential suite was flawless. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, an enormous living room, a full dining room, and a spectacular bedroom. King-size bed. Soft pillows. A bathroom bigger than many apartments. I threw my suitcase on the floor, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the bed, stretching out like I owned the world. Then I heard knocking on the door. Loud. Impatient. I already knew who it was. I took my time answering. When I finally opened the door, Ryan stormed in, furious, followed by my parents. "You can't do this." Ryan exploded, like a child who had lost his favorite toy. I leaned against the wall, crossing my arms. "Keeping the best room for yourself," my mother said, visibly upset. "You know Ryan has trouble sleeping in small beds." I looked at her. "Sounds like a Ryan problem." My father huffed. "We're a family. We should be together." I let out a dry laugh. "Oh, now we're a family. That's funny, because I don't remember anyone worrying about that when you decided I'd sleep on the sofa." Silence. Ryan rolled his eyes. "Whatever. Just switch rooms with me." I raised an eyebrow. "Are you listening to yourself?" "Come on, it's no big deal," my father tried to argue. "You've never cared about this kind of thing." I slowly stepped closer. "You're right. I didn't care before, because nothing I did mattered. Because in the end, Ryan was always the priority." I looked at all of them. But guess what? I made the reservation. I paid. And now I do care. Ryan glared at me, furious. "Stop acting like you're someone important." I laughed again. "You have no idea how far I can go." My mother sighed, rubbing her temples. "And where are we going to sleep now?" When I closed the door, I allowed myself a silent laugh. The feeling of finally having some control, of seeing the surprise and frustration on their faces, was something I had never experienced before. For the first time in my life, I wasn't in the background. I wasn't the shadow. I walked over to the sweets bar and poured myself a glass of whiskey. I didn't drink much, but this was a special occasion. I sank into the armchair, looking out the window at the breathtaking view of Manhattan. In the past, this scene would have seemed impossible. I had always been the one who accepted other people's decisions, the one who stayed quiet while Ryan got the best of everything. But now the rules had changed. My phone vibrated on the side table. I picked it up and, unsurprisingly, saw dozens of messages in the family group chat. Furious messages from my mother, outraged ones from my father, and a few from Ryan, short and almost threatening. "This is absurd. Your brother needs a big bed. I can't believe you did this. It was extremely selfish. You're overreacting. Fix this now. Stop the drama and give us the room." I calmly read everything, took a sip of whiskey, then simply blocked the notifications. I leaned back in the armchair, enjoying a satisfaction I hadn't felt in a long time. But then, there was another knock at the door. This time it wasn't just Ryan and my parents. When I opened it, I saw my Aunt Carla and Uncle Mauricio, who lived in New York and had come to meet us. Apparently, my parents had already complained to them. "What the hell is going on?" my uncle asked, crossing his arms. My mother seized the opportunity to launch into drama. "Your nephew decided to act selfishly and keep the presidential suite all to himself while we, his family, have no decent place to sleep." I crossed my arms and looked at my uncle, waiting to see which side he would take. He had always been a serious, diplomatic man. But to my surprise, he looked at me and smiled slightly. "Did you pay for this room?" "Yes," I answered firmly. "Then it's yours." My mother's eyes widened. "How can you say that, Mauricio? You've always been a sensible man. This isn't fair." He laughed. "Fair? Tell me, when was the last time you were fair to him?" Silence. My father huffed. "It's not a matter of fairness. It's a matter of respect for the family." My uncle looked at me again, this time more seriously. "Tell me one thing, nephew. Did you do this just out of revenge?" I thought for a moment before answering. Maybe at first, yes. But now I realize it's much more than that. It's about setting boundaries. He nodded. "Then don't feel guilty. You did the right thing for yourself." My mother was red with anger. "I can't believe this, Mauricio. You're supporting this madness." He just shrugged. I'm supporting someone who decided to take control of their own destiny. Ryan, who had been silent until now, stepped into the suite. This isn't going to end like this. I stepped forward, unafraid. What are you going to do, Ryan? Cry until mom and dad give you everything again? He clenched his teeth. I had never seen him so furious. You've always been a nobody. Booking an expensive room isn't going to change that. I took another step closer, looking him straight in the eyes. Funny, because right now, I'm the one in control. He pushed me. Aunt Carla gasped, and my uncle stepped forward, but I stood firm. Ryan stared at me, waiting for a reaction, but I just smiled. Good luck with the sofa, I said, and closed the door in their faces. The next morning, I woke up to the annoying sound of the suite's phone ringing non-stop. Still half asleep, I reached out and answered. Sir, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's a problem with the other guests on your reservation, said the hotel receptionist in a cautious tone. I had already imagined it. What happened? Your parents and brother tried to access the presidential suite, claiming there was an error and that you had made a mistake with the reservation. We tried to explain that the suite is under your name, but they insisted on speaking with the manager. I sighed and rubbed my eyes. And what did the manager say? Well, he confirmed that the room is yours. But it seems your family didn't take the news very well. They are now demanding a room change, arguing that there was a misunderstanding. I chuckled softly, incredulous. And what's the issue? The executive suite they had originally reserved was reassigned because the guarantee payment wasn't completed. At the moment, we only have standard rooms available. So that was it. Their arrogance had led them to a situation they never imagined, facing the discomfort of a standard room. Can you transfer me to the manager? I asked. A few seconds later, I heard a more serious man's voice. Good morning, sir. My name is Patrick. I'm the hotel manager. I'm sorry to bother you, but I'd like to know if there's any possibility of negotiating regarding your suite. Negotiate? I repeated, amused. Yes, your family members are quite dissatisfied with the situation and requested that we discuss a possible relocation on your part. I held back a laugh. So let me understand, Patrick. They planned this trip without even considering my comfort. They decided I would sleep on the sofa without asking me. And now that they are the ones in an inferior room, they want me to give up the presidential suite. There was a brief silence before his response. Well, yes, sir. I smiled. Then my answer is no. He cleared his throat. I understand. And one more thing, Patrick. If they try to cause trouble in the hotel, notify me immediately. I'm paying a good amount for this suite, and I don't want to be disturbed. Of course, sir. We will guarantee your privacy. I hung up the phone and sank back into the bed. The thought of my parents and Ryan crammed into a standard room, after years of making me feel like a second-class citizen in my own family, was priceless. It was simply perfect. I made sure to enjoy my morning. I took a long, relaxing bath in the enormous bathtub of the suite. I ordered a full breakfast through room service. And when I finished, I went down to the hotel lounge. I knew I would eventually run into my family, but at that moment, I was ready to provoke, and I didn't have to wait long. As soon as I entered the lounge, I saw Ryan sitting with his arms crossed and a furious expression. My parents were beside him, equally frustrated. What amused me the most was that, unlike their usual attitude, this time they looked uncomfortable, as if the situation was out of their control. I walked toward them with all the calm in the world. Good morning, I said casually as I grabbed a cup of coffee from the buffet. My mother was the first to explode. Are you satisfied? Look at us. We are stuck in a tiny room while you're wasting luxury on that ridiculous suite. I took a sip of coffee before responding. Ridiculous? That's funny, because when you thought you would be staying in it, it seemed like a great choice. Ryan slammed his hand on the table. You're only doing this for revenge. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Maybe a little. But honestly, I'm just treating you the same way you've always treated me. My father finally decided to intervene. Don't be ridiculous. You know we always tried to do what was best for you. I let out a brief laugh. The best for me? Like when I had to study late at night because you spent all the education money on Ryan. Like when I received cheap birthday gifts while he got the best of the best. Like when you decided I would sleep on the sofa without even asking me. My mother rolled her eyes. You're exaggerating. Exaggerating? My voice now had a sharper tone. I think what really bothers you is that for the first time in my life, I'm not staying silent. The silence was absolute. My father looked away. My mother crossed her arms. Ryan clenched his fists. You can't do this, he said, his voice filled with restrained anger. Oh, but I can. And I am. I turned to leave, but my mother grabbed my arm. You're being cruel. I slowly freed my arm and looked at her indifferently. Cruel. Cruel is what you've done to me my whole life. She opened her mouth to respond but stopped. For the first time, she seemed hesitant, as if she no longer knew how to manipulate me. I walked out of the lounge, satisfied, but I knew this wasn't over. My parents would never admit they were wrong. Ryan would never accept being treated like an ordinary person. And that's why I was sure they wouldn't give up so easily. The game had just begun. That night, I slept better than ever. The enormous bed in the presidential suite was a true throne. And for the first time in years, I felt like someone who truly deserved to be there. My parents and Ryan. Well, they were in a standard room. No luxury. No privilege. That alone was already worth everything. But I knew Ryan wouldn't swallow this humiliation so easily. The next morning, I woke up early and ordered a full breakfast from room service. Artisanal breads, fresh fruit, eggs made to order, and perfect coffee, all delivered to my private suite. While I was eating, I heard loud voices in the hallway. I knew it was only a matter of time before Ryan exploded again, and I was right. When I went down to the hotel reception, I found him arguing with the manager. Ryan was red with rage, gesturing aggressively while my father tried to calm him. My mother stood beside them, clearly embarrassed. This is absurd. Ryan shouted. I'm a better guest than him. How is it possible that you can't do anything? The manager remained professional. Sir, we've already explained that the presidential suite was reserved and paid for by your brother. We cannot transfer it without his consent. That's when Ryan saw me and came straight toward me. You love this, don't you? He growled. You think you've won? I crossed my arms, completely calm. I don't think. I know. His expression darkened even more. You've always been a loser. Always. Just because you have a better room for a few days, you think that changes something. I stepped forward, looking at him without fear. Ryan, tell me something. When was the last time you paid for something yourself? When was the last time you got something without our parents taking care of it for you? He opened his mouth but couldn't answer. I laughed. Exactly. You can't. He clenched his teeth, and before I knew it, he tried to push me again. But this time, I was ready. I stepped aside, and he lost his balance. Ryan stumbled awkwardly backward, hit the reception counter, and fell ridiculously to the floor. There was silence in the lobby. All the nearby guests, the hotel staff, and even my parents were staring at him. And then someone laughed. At first, it was a low chuckle from one of the guests waiting to check in. But soon another laughed, then another. In seconds, several people in the lobby were trying to stifle their laughter or whispering among themselves. Ryan jumped to his feet. His face was red with pure embarrassment. What are you all laughing at? But no one answered. They simply looked away or laughed discreetly. My father grabbed him by the arm, trying to get him out of there as quickly as possible. My mother threw me a hateful glare. You've gone too far. Oh, have I? I replied. But by then, I no longer cared. Now there's a limit. Because when I was sleeping on the sofa, when I had to fend for myself my entire life, it didn't seem like there was one. My father didn't reply. He just grabbed Ryan and led him away. The hotel manager looked at me, seeming satisfied. Sir, if there's any other inconvenience, please let us know. I smiled. I will. I went back up to my suite, certain that for the first time in his life, Ryan had finally gotten what he deserved. He was no longer the spoiled child, the perfect son, the untouchable one. He was just a brat who, when life pushed him to the wall, didn't know what to do. That night, I slept even better, and this time, it wasn't just because of the king-size bed. It was because after years, I was finally free. When the trip ended and we returned home, there was a silence that had never existed before. No one said anything at the airport. Not a word during the flight. No goodbyes when everyone went their separate ways. It was as if I had ceased to exist for them. And to be honest, I didn't care. After years of living in Ryan's shadow, of being treated like a secondary character in the story of my own family, their silence was a gift. It was confirmation that for the first time, I had broken the cycle. There were no more family dinners where I was ignored. No last-minute messages asking for favors. Nothing. And I was at peace with that. The first few days were strangely quiet. The family group chat remained silent. Before, it had been a constant stream of messages about Ryan, his achievements, his plans, his demands. Now, there were no more updates. No more, Ryan got an amazing new project, or, we're so proud of what Ryan is doing. And I knew why. Ryan was silent because he was humiliated. Because for the first time in his life, he had lost. Not a small loss that could be ignored or fixed with our parents' help. He had lost in a public, ridiculous way. And most importantly, in a way that mom and dad couldn't do anything to save him. And me? Well, I kept living my life as usual. At work, my colleagues noticed that I seemed more relaxed, calmer, more confident. When they asked me about the trip, I summed it up in a few words. It was great. I had a lot of fun. And I left it at that. Because unlike Ryan, I didn't need attention or a stage to feel important. I had already achieved what really mattered, my freedom. A few weeks later, I received an invitation to Ryan's birthday, a family gathering. I could have easily ignored it. But at that moment, I realized I didn't want to run away. I had nothing to fear. So I went. When I arrived, the atmosphere felt strange. The conversations quieted down. There were glances exchanged. My mother pretended not to see me and continued talking to an aunt. My father greeted me with a simple nod, nothing more. And Ryan? Well, Ryan didn't even look at me. I couldn't have asked for a better gift. I grabbed a drink, sat on the sofa, and observed. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to fit in. I didn't have to prove anything. And deep down, I knew that everyone was waiting for me to speak first. To apologize, to make some casual comment, something to show that everything was fine and that we could move on as if nothing had happened. But I didn't give them that satisfaction. I stayed there calmly, chatting with my cousins, laughing, enjoying the night. It was only when Ryan finally approached, after more than an hour of avoiding me, that the tension rose. He cleared his throat. You seem pretty comfortable. I raised an eyebrow. Yes, I am. He frowned, expecting more. When he saw that I wasn't going to say anything else, he continued. Don't you think you overdid it on that trip? I took a sip before responding. No. He scoffed with disdain. You've always been an idiot. I shrugged. And you've always been a spoiled child. He stared at me for a few seconds, waiting for me to give in, to apologize. But I simply smiled and went back to chatting with my cousins. Ryan walked away, frustrated, probably expecting a different outcome. But what he didn't understand, and maybe never would, was that I had already won. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need him. I didn't need my parents' approval. I didn't need anyone but myself. And that was something they could never take away from me. When the night ended, I left the party as calmly as I had arrived. No one called me. No one tried to stop me. And for the first time, that didn't bother me at all. I was fine. Better than ever.